Welcome to the Finding the Magic podcast, where books come alive. I'm Tricia Copeland, a fiction author and host of this show. If you love books, finding great reads, and hearing about the story behind the story directly from the authors, this is the place for you. Whether you like fantasy, science fiction, dystopian, or romance titles, I think you'll find something to love in my playlist. Listen in to discover something magical about a book or two today.
Welcome, Jonni.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Today we have author Jordyn. She is a multi-genre author from rom-com to political thrillers to fantasy. Oh, do you write fantasy too?
Yes.
Okay,
The
yeah.
the Magic series is current day. It's modern urban magic, I guess or magic realism.
Okay.
But
Fine.
it's technically fantasy.
Okay, where do you want to start with all of this?
How about I'd like to start with the rom-coms.
Okay.
Because one of them in particular, the Diva, has been getting so much traction. And the reviewers, have you ever written something that the reviewers spot something about it that you didn't really realize you put into it?
Interesting.
The reviewers are coming back talking about the satire, and I hadn't even really written it as a satire, but they're right.
Interesting. So set the characters up for us, the location.
Well, okay, it started with the character. I had this idea about a woman who was an opera singer and was absolutely vile to people. Because she was the best and she had to have the best of everything, and she was just treated people really poorly. Well, it's this book mixes the opera with cowboys and gangsters and outer space, and she's going to do a show off on the other side of the galaxy, and she gets dumped onto a moon that is actually a dude ranch, and she gets dumped there because that particular part of the galaxy is having a kind of a financial civil war, and her tickets and all her money are on the other side, and they can't get it. So she's been relabeled a trespasser, and she's kicked off, and they have to go into this old dude town, and she has to sing just for them to have a hotel room and some food. And obviously nothing there meets to her standards. It's dirty, it's dusty, and it's just kind of hilarious, and and it touches on issues of political problems between the emperor and the people, and who owns all the money. Have you ever heard of a political figure who makes a decision and doesn't think about the fact that he just cut himself off from services that he needs? So that it's in there.
Interesting that the first thing you led with that it was a rom-com, and then okay, wait, it's a sci-fi space cowboy book as well. So that's
Yeah,
that's fun.
it is crazy, and I put it out there, and I'm putting it out there thinking, I hope the people like my comedy. Hope they and they're loving it, and so it's kind of a risk when you jump into something so different from the genres you've been doing.
Yeah, but you said you were surprised they thought it was a satire, but you thought it was a comedy. How are those two things different?
Well, it's the actual things in the book of the issues with the emperor, the and how snooty and snobby she is. I mean, she actually there are a couple of short bellhops, and she actually says they're too ugly. Get them away from me. She's absolutely awful, and they are adoring her. not for how she is, but they have other plans. And so yeah, there's so much comedy in it, but the tools that I use were very much like some of the problems that we have real day.
Interesting. And so does it end up a happily ever after, or can you tell us that?
It does not end up the happily ever after that you might have expected throughout the book, but it does end up happily ever after.
Oh, fun. So there's a big twist then.
Yeah.
So that is Diva. What is your other rom-com?
The other one is Something About Nobility. Now, this one started off as an experiment. I have never written first person, and I'm looking at all the success other authors are having with small first person romances mostly. And I thought, well, let me give it a try. And I came up with a character. And the other thing I did different is I'm writing it from the man's view. And so he's just he's a really smart kid. I think I had him at 18 years old, and he's a really smart kid, and he knows how to arrange things to get people out of trouble. And it's 16th century England, so it's a historical rom-com. And it's a historical. No, I don't want to go there.
Well, the comedy part, right?
Yeah. Well, he lives in Earl's. His father is the gardener at an Earl's estate, but all his life he was raised along with the Earl's daughter. They had the same classes, the same tutors, and he had lots of privileges. He wasn't really expected to pull his weight around there, and the daughter was in love with another boy, but there was, of course, a feud between those families, and so she shows the gardener's son. She shows him, oh look, I have a new ring, and he's like, oh my God, you accepted a betrothal ring, and you haven't even told your father that you're seeing this boy, and it's like, so he says, well, here's what we have to do. We have to make him look like a very good suitor, and that everybody else could, like tell your father that you just got engaged to the lowest ranking farmer or something, possible, so that he could say, oh, well, he's not so bad after all. Well, she goes and tells her father that she's engaged to Hector, the farmer's son, and everything just kind of blows up from there. And Hector starts, weaving these tales and rumors and things to try to somehow get out of it, and it just grows bigger and bigger up to the point that he planted a rumor that this other boy was actually the king's son. He was actually one of those whelps that was left lying around, and the king comes to see who's claiming to be my son. And unbeknownst to the king, the queen comes and says, what is my husband up to? So it gets a little crazy and a little wild. And but as I said, that was the first and only time I wrote it in first person, and I had a blast doing the experiment, but I did return to third person.
Interesting. Yeah, I get that because I write mostly in first person, and I've tried doing short stories in third person and thought, okay, well, I'll try a whole book, and I'm always like, no, I can't do it. So I get that if you write one way, your brain thinks one way, it's hard to switch that, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm how do I introduce something that happened that was not in my first person narrator's view, And so I ended up having him relay the story as told by somebody. And it was a lot of learning and had a lot of fun doing it, but I think it's a fun little story.
Fun.
And
So,
it does end up in a happy ending.
oh, good. I love happy endings, so I'm not gonna guess on that one because I can imagine several different ways that going for the characters. So how do you jump between your rom-coms and you have a viruses series?
Yeah, the virus books, that's a sci-fi series, but the first book, and I've had reviewers note this too, you don't really know that you're in a sci-fi until you get to the ending.
Oh, interesting.
Because it's intrigue, it's spies and FBI and the NSA and the CIA, and people are being kidnapped and just all kinds of uh, crazy, non-comical this time, crazy stuff happening. But in the end, it all centers around a boy in a university who's a computer programmer. So there's a lot of technical stuff in there about programming. And I had reviewers that said, I absolutely loved the technical stuff, right up my alley. And the love and the other stuff was kind of And then other people said, well, I couldn't understand all the technical stuff. I kind of like sped through it and got to all about the people, and the people are just, fantastic. So it's got a little something for everybody, but maybe not everything for everybody.
Well, in the sci-fi genre, I feel like there's those hard sci-fi people who want all the tech stuff. And that's like my husband, he's an engineer. So he like really gets into the technical parts and he's like, yada, yada, yada. The story is good, but the technical parts are really cool. And then there's the soft sci-fi people like me who just wants, okay, the science is pretty cool, but I really like the story of the characters. So yeah, you have to, if you can give people both, then everybody will like it, right?
And I think I'm getting both. Now, when I get to the second and the third book, they do go in hard sci-fi.
Okay.
And we're talking AI computers, but there's also still the intrigue. And we got rogue politicians that are doing things and kidnapping people, trying to get information. And it's just so it's there's still that blend, but it does get more hard sci-fi with actual digital creatures, digital beings,
Interesting.
and how can digital beings be sentient? And so I go into some places that maybe some people don't want to go.
Interesting, but do you do tons of research on, or is this your field?
Programming is my field.
Oh, okay.
And in fact, the first book was based on a program that I wrote in the 90s. I wrote a program that simulated genetics. And it did a great job too. But the idea that I was you can try to create something better by breeding. And so I took that to, well, maybe if I took programs and I made a slight change and then I compared how well they ran, I could breed them and come up with some, continue to improve.
Right.
Well, and so that was the part of the core of that, and that's what took you from just being kind of science into eventually being in science fiction.
Well, and that's what AI does, right? It generatively makes itself better, I think, partly. I'm not a computer person, so it's funny when I'm a bio person. So when I see viruses, I think, oh, like biological viruses, and probably you were talking about computer viruses.
Yes, computer viruses, but it's funny. I started out in college in biology.
Oh,
I,
interesting.
I wanted I wanted to study genetics, and part of my course had me go to the computer lab and run some tests. And it was like I already knew how to program computers. It was like completely, instinctual to me. So I ended up leaving my biology major.
Interesting. That's like a second language for you, or maybe a first language for you. Because yeah, I studied my microbial genetics. That was my major in school. So I'm more the bio side, and I know genetics, but computer programming it goes over my head.
A professor from UC Berkeley saw a demonstration of my program and wanted to know if he could get a copy of it. And I told him I'd love to give you a copy of it, but it's not running on a standard, IBM Windows PC. It's something else. And so unfortunately that didn't happen.
Interesting. That's very cool. So how do you jump from that to like a political thriller and fantasy?
Well, these days, I don't know how you cannot be aware of the political ramifications of everything around us. And while I don't touch what is actually happening, I do invent some things that are like what's happening. And initially, the first book I wrote like this was the virus book, and my thought was, oh, I'm sorry. I, I love to create multiple strings and twist them around each other. And I like to give the reader hints of what might be going on. One thing I hate is when someone has a book or a movie even where they're kind of leading you down this path and then pull a complete 180-degree surprise that there was no clues of in anywhere in there. No, I gave you plenty of clues to figure out what's going on, but I also gave you clues for an easier answer that you might go with. And so I started with this idea of there was a unknown artifact that was stolen from some unknown government facility. And you could think Area 51. And this artifact was stolen, and this professor was asked to reverse engineer it and see what he could figure out. Well, he gave the task to this really brilliant young boy, and he not only, they not only reverse engineered it, but they got it powered on. And so it's in the computer while they're doing their other stuff, and it's kind of listening and learning to what they're doing. And what this boy does, his professor wants to create clean energy. She has this idea to create clean energy, and he figures out a way to do the breeding thing with the program to try to make this energy more and more efficient. And that kind of led to issues when the artifact learned how to make this clean energy.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah. I feel like mystery thriller books are the hardest to write because you have to really layer them and see little clues along the way and really plan them out.
Yeah,
Do you plan books out like detailed outlines before you write or
I write an outline.
okay.
I do write an outline, and I create my chapters and all my scenes in outline form. The next step is I go in and I just kind of flesh out that outline a little bit. I'll write a quick short scene for each of them that's going to introduce more of the characters, but it's not finished. And then I go through it again, and I start to fluff it up and flesh it out some more. And along the reason I do it that way is because as I get down here somewhere and I go, ooh, this would be really good if I did this and this and this, but if I change this up here to suggest that. And so it just it just kind of grows. A lot of authors will sit down and write stream of consciousness and have this great big long document and then start cutting out the things that they don't really want to keep. I go the other way. I do more of an additive process.
Additive, sort of like your computer programs, right?
Yeah,
Maybe that's the way your mind thinks.
it might be.
Interesting. This is so much fun. So you had the viruses series. What about the Chronicles of the Grull? Tell me about that one.
The Chronicles of the Grull is it started off in an online group where we were all writers, and so someone laid out the challenge let's write a story about snow in 800 words or less. And so I wrote this story about this ancient people who lived in a valley that was flooded. And I guess this is not the best time to talk about floods wiping out an entire people, but they were flooded and they had to find a new home. And as they're climbing the mountains, the leader, there is a leader and there's a medicine woman who can both speak to their ancestors, basically. And the leader is following the ancestors' guide to the ancient ancestral grounds, and they reach a point where they run into snow. They don't know what snow is. They've been living down in the sunny valley. Um, and so that was the start. I wrote this 800-page short story, 800-word short story about them finding snow, not knowing what it is, but discovering that if you hold it in your hand, it melts into pure water, and water is holy. So I took that, and then what I did, I started writing a chapter every month. And a chapter would be probably about 10 or 12,000 words. And every month I released a new chapter on Amazon. Now, the downside is I'm not able to go back to those earlier chapters and change anything for what's up here. So I really had to keep them small packets of part of the story. But I still had to show growth amongst the characters. And that turned out to be very successful. I found my readership growing and growing, and I started the first 10 or 12 chapters, which is the calling of the Grull, is about man versus nature. And the second volume, which I haven't released yet, is man versus man, where they have run into some tribes that aren't friendly. And there's slavers and things like that they run into. The third one is not finished yet. I think I'll start working on it again the end of this year, but it's about basically man versus God or versus the spirits as they're trying to find their way in the real world and in their spiritual world.
That's interesting. Or do the spirits come alive? Are they beginning to talk to all the people, or just still through the medicine woman and the leader?
Well,
or you don't know yet?
I do. I'm trying to figure out how much I want. I'll reveal. The
Okay,
medicine woman, the medicine woman leaves the tribe because it's time for her to die. And she goes and finds a private place to do this. And there's a whole ritual she does to welcome her into the spirit world. But again, this is man versus man. A not very good person finds her and interrupts her journey to the spirit world and takes a piece of her, which he uses, doesn't let her completely finish her journey, and he can use that to do stronger magic.
Oh,
So there's that happens, and they've already had to deal with the fact that there are slavers, and so now her spirit is enslaved.
that's heavy stuff. Well, we'll be wishing those characters good things.
Not all of them make it, but
Wow.
but
As
there are
often
happy
happens in
endings.
books, right?
So, I have to admit, I was writing some of that during the Game of Thrones peak on HBO, and if you've watched that, you know how much he liked to knock off characters right and left.
Yes, it got pretty dark. That sounds like a lot of fun. And your fantasy series is the Tome series, is that right?
It's the Lost Art of Magic.
Okay, the Lost Art of Magic, sorry.
And in the Lost Art of Magic, the magic's been gone, and we know magic's not real. People used to believe it, hundreds of years ago. And but they were uneducated. That's our theory. They were uneducated. They didn't know, and so people stopped believing in magic, and it's just myth. Well, I'm going to take the approach that it was real. It's not myth, but people stopped believing in it because there was two clans of magic users. There was the witches who did mind and ethereal things, and then there was the sorcerers who could do physical things. They could move rocks. They could produce lightning and fire from their hands. And in one of the books, a child says, well, why is it that the sorcerers did not win? If they can produce fire and lightning, why didn't they wipe us all out? Well, it's because the witches have their own strengths, that they could put ideas into their heads and have them fight each other, or things like that. So in the first book, though, magic is gone. There is no magic, but we know that there are still people who can claim to move objects or bend spoons, and that we know that there are people who have psychic powers, are able to see the spirits, or able to see into your past. So I grant that each of the clans, they're able to retain a tiny, tiny portion of their powers. And one of them is the ability to look back into their ancestral memories. So we have a 16-year-old girl who's being raised by her grandmother in the bayous of Louisiana, and she's homeschooled, but she's a descendant of generations of witches. And it has come time to train her on some of their witch abilities that they have left. And the first one that she learns is going back into her ancestral memories. She does this, and on her first trip, she lives the life of a woman named Rebecca. And Rebecca was a nurse uh, for field hospitals during the wars. And her patients were miraculously surviving when other doctors and nurses weren't. So she came under suspicion, and they ended up burning her at the stake. Well, our 16-year-old girl is in her mind living all this right up until the burning and the flames licking at her flesh. She comes out of her trance, and she comes out not just with that memory, but with the power. She comes out with the power of healing. And but when she does that, there's a release of pent-up power that hasn't been available for 1,000 years. And this release is felt by other witches and the other clan. The other clan does not, they want to make sure that they own the power. So they set out on a expedition to hunt her down and steal the power or kill her, or him. They don't even know.
Right.
So that's how this story about magic became a lot about the intrigue and chasing down and trying to find them, and putting people undercover to try to infiltrate, what they expect to be a major coven. They don't realize it's just one little girl. And so that's how that one started out.
That's amazing. I mean, that seems like it's a great adventure story. I am ready to put it on my to be read list right now.
That one's also available on Audible.
Oh, I have Audible. I love audiobooks.
And my narrator did a wonderful job with a lot of the accents. So you're going to hear the British guys and the Irish kid, and it really, really opens up the book.
How much fun. I love audiobooks, so I will look for that one. Can you tell everyone where we can find you and your books?
I'm on Amazon primarily. I also have my books on Google Play. I don't think anyone's found them there yet. I am in the, I have decided, let me put it that way, because I haven't actually started doing, I have to get new covers made so I can put these books out on Lightspeed, and get them in, make them available. I'm scheduled to appear in Canada at a bookstore. And so I want to get these books available so they can order them.
Okay.
I'm on Amazon, as I said. You can just look for Jonni Jordyn. I also have a website. It's jordanatlargebooks.com. And those are the best ways to find me.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I love learning all about your books and all about your genres, and I will probably come back and pick your brain again.
Oh, and you're welcome to come back and pick my brain. But
So much fun.
it's a neurodivergent brain, so careful with the picking.
Okay, well, I was going to say it's a brilliant brain from my point of view.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for being here, Jonni.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Bye.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Finding the Magic podcast. I'm your host, author and podcaster Tricia Copeland, and I love getting behind the scenes. If you like the podcast, make sure to subscribe and stop in each week to discover new authors and books. Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep finding the magic.